Hello there. Welcome to the Healthy Enterprise. If you're a return listener, thank you for coming back. And if this is your first visit, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. My guest today is Brent Lucas. Brent has spent most of his professional life in the hearing loss industry, originating in a family-owned business with his parents. He worked alongside them for several years. At some point, the company transformed into Envoy Medical, as it is known today. He's been there for 18 years, and 9 years ago became the CEO when they made a major transformation and are in the process of delivering a new product to the market. It's going to be an interesting story, so I hope you enjoy it, and let's meet Brent. So, Brent, welcome to this episode. I really appreciate you joining me, and I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to listeners and about where you got to where you're at now as CEO with Envoy, and talk about Envoy and what you're doing in the hearing loss industry right now.
Well, great. Yes, pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So the best way to describe Envoy, and I guess my journey, is to start from the beginning. Envoy is a 30-year-old startup company. It was founded in 1995 when I was a middle school kid going into high school. So I'm a 44-year-old man now, so this has been quite a journey. My father was one of the first outside investors of that company in 1995. So that company back then was called Envoy Medical. They were coming together, a group of former Medtronic folks were coming together to create the world's first fully implanted device, world's first fully implanted hearing device that did not use a microphone but used the ear to pick up sound. That was sort of the founding idea of Envoy Medical. From there, the company started to grow, and I became involved in the company in about 2007, actually working for the company when I was then in law school. Started working here in the summers as an intern, doing some marketing work, some nonprofit work, slowly getting into a variety of different things around the business. That process led me to understand there were a lot of opportunities for the company to where I could really contribute. A lot of openings, if you will, that were not being filled that I felt I could add value to the overall organization. And since my father and my mother had invested so much of their hard-earned money in the company, I really wanted to see it come to fruition. So in 2009, I passed the bar. I became the lawyer for the company, in-house counsel. Was doing that for a little bit. Then decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, which I always kind of knew I didn't want to be a lawyer. Who does want to be a lawyer, I guess?
Or a marketer.
Right. We kind of find ourselves in these positions, right?
Yeah.
The world sort of leads you in a direction, and there you are. But it got to a point where the company was struggling commercially, and really didn't make sense to me, frankly, because it is such an amazing technology, our device, that I didn't understand why it wasn't doing better. So I wanted to move and go into the field. And so I did that and started, sort of carrying a bag, if you will. We called it business development, but it's really more of a sales rep role, traditional sales rep role, going around, really talking to customers, trying to understand what's going on. And from there, got a much better sense of the company's challenges, who our customers were. But then the company went through a period where we weren't really sure if we were going to keep going. So in 2015, the company got to a point where we looked at ourselves and said, boy, should we really continue beating our head against the wall with this first product, or should we do something different? Or should we go bankrupt? Or should we sell ourselves? So the company was at a crossroad in 2015. And what happened was I essentially went to our largest investor at the time and said, I have a fantastic idea, but it's only going to cost you another $20 million to fund it. Will you go forward? And shockingly, he said yes. I became the CEO, and that's what we've been up to for the last 10 years, basically.
Wow. So, explain the product at that time. Where was it at then, and what was your idea? How did you morph it to the next stage?
So Envoy is when you break Envoy down to what is it? Why are we here? And why
Right.
have we been able to survive 30 years of ups and downs? It comes to the fact that we make fully implanted hearing devices that don't use a microphone, but actually use the ear to pick up sound. So our first product, it was called the Esteem. It's a fully implanted active middle ear implant. And what we did was we took the sensor that was in that Esteem and put it with a cochlear implant, essentially. So for people who aren't familiar with the hearing space, middle ear implants are a very niche market right now. Cochlear implants are an accepted therapy that have been out there. They have existing reimbursement codes, existing market acceptance, and it's just a very well-known therapy. So we said, let's take that sensor that everybody's been telling us is wonderful and put it with a cochlear implant. And that's what we did in 2015. So that is now called the Acclaim. It's a fully implanted cochlear implant. We are in pivotal clinical trials right now at 7 investigational sites across the U.S. And we're positioning ourselves to disrupt, or I believe disrupt, the current players in the market because their current technologies are partially implanted and have a large external on the outside. So essentially, I guess, looking back 2015, we said, we've spent 20 years on something that's pretty great, and we know the technology is good. Commercially not a viable product because there was a lack of insurance reimbursement for it. Plus, we had made some other mistakes, but let's just throw most of the blame on the lack of insurance. But let's take that sensor. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you will. So let's take that sensor that everybody's been telling us is a golden implantable microphone, take that and put it with a cochlear implant, and now you got yourself a real product. And that's what we've done, and we're really positioned quite well to take advantage of it.
And is it in the market now? People are. You said you're still at clinical trials right now?
Yes. So currently we're in pivotal clinical trials. There's including our feasibility study and then our pivotal clinical study. We have 13 patients implanted. Things are going quite well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need to go through the full study to really talk about the data and hopefully prove our primary and secondary endpoints and see where we land. But I feel very good about things. I feel like we made the right choice. And boy, I tell you that, the medical device industry, and then you throw on top of that the hearing industry, it's not for the faint of heart. So it's been quite a journey, but I feel like we're well positioned now to take advantage of the future.
Well, and particularly when you were at a fork in the road where you were like, well, do we just stop here or do we keep going? I mean, you're probably at the point where it's like that step to the next level was a giant leap, was of faith to take it to go this route, right?
Right. I mean, if you think where we were in 2015, I used to have these numbers well memorized, but that's paid in capital at that point, probably around $150 million to $175 million. And then to say at that period of time you know what, let's basically start over with a new product and take in additional capital and have to raise more. Now we're at about $250 million in paid in capital. So again, these medical devices are not for the faint of the heart. You really do need to be committed, but the opportunity is quite large, and the ability to impact people's lives is really second to none.
And this device, the new one, once you get through that and it's actually available to people, so the level of hearing loss, is it for complete loss? Is it for partial loss, or all of the above?
So the cochlear implants and ours, I'll just really talk about ours because there's a little bit of varying indications among the different manufacturers. But our device is for severe to profound hearing loss. So these are people who typically have worn hearing aids prior in their life, and those hearing aids are no longer doing enough for them because they have progressed to have such a higher degree of hearing loss that they need something different. So the way I talk about it is, if in the United States we have about 40 to 50 million people who have some form of hearing loss that's impacting their life, so they notice it. of that 40 to 50 million, probably 2.5 to 4 million people could be cochlear implant candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So these are truly people that have no other therapeutic option at the moment. Hearing aids are not doing it for them. So they really have the choice. I either just do nothing, right? Keep doing nothing, or I keep spending money on these expensive hearing aids that are really not doing it for me because they can't give me enough signal, or I move to a cochlear implant. And now what we're saying is we can offer patients the opportunity to have a fully implanted cochlear implant where there's nothing on the outside of your head at all. You can wear it 24/7. You can wear it in the shower. You can wear it when you go swimming.
Wow.
All of the benefits of sort of a typically normally hearing person, quote unquote, normally hearing person, you can have that even though you're profoundly deaf. So I think we're going to be in a really good position to take advantage of where the patient wants the industry to go, even if the industry itself is not yet moving there.
Yeah, and that's a substantial change in the quality of their life. I mean, when you go from, unless someone's actually experienced it and knows what it's like to live with that kind of a hearing loss, that's a dream come true, right?
I think so. I've talked to enough patients of our first product, even though it wasn't a commercial success. We did implant about 1,000 patients with that first product. And their reaction to having a fully implanted system, they talk about their shoulders sort of dropping, right? So when you're constantly trying to hear through your hearing aids or you have hearing loss, you kind of tighten up. You're always trying to pay attention to what somebody's saying to you, and
right.
that level of anxiety and stress. So when you can hear again without having something on the outside, you don't have to give that listening effort, as they call it.
Right.
So that's a quality of life improvement. I also point to things like single parents. So if you have a young child, or maybe you're not a young child, maybe you're out of your home, you're an elderly person and you're in your home by yourself, being able to hear at night, we all take it for granted. But being able to hear at night is a huge deal. So traditional cochlear implants and many hearing aids, you have to take them off at night. And people forget that very simple point that they've taken off their hearing, they've set it aside. You're wearing glasses, for example. I don't know the level of your vision loss, but if, my father, if he took his glasses off and put them on the bedstand, if he had to wake up in the middle of the night, he better find those glasses or he's going to run into a wall.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
There's no, I can't drive. I can't, yeah, exactly. You're disabled basically from being able to see anything. So yeah, same idea. Yeah.
Right. So we really feel like now we're going to give people the opportunity to address their hearing loss without being tethered to that hearing loss, and at least have the option for that. They don't have to go with our device, but now they have the option. And I think this is going to be a big deal. And that's why I'm so bullish on our future.
Yeah. So the projection, how far are you away from being in the market? Is it a year or less?
Unfortunately, these pivotal trials take a while, and the hearing implant way that these trials are run is typically a 12-month follow-up period. So we've done 10 patients in our first stage of the pivotal. Now we have to wait a couple of months. FDA agreed to our IDE with a staged clinical trial, meaning we'll do 10 patients, wait a little bit, make sure everything looks okay, and then expand it into the remaining 46. So total 56 patients.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So hopefully we're going to get that expansion into the second stage, in the fall, late fall, which will allow us then to go out, implant those 46 patients and follow them. So if you put all the math together and I put it on a timeline, you're going to see us commercial, hopefully at the end of 2027 or beginning of 2028.
Yeah. That's a big leap, right? There's a lot of time waiting there, collecting data.
You're right. Right.
Yeah. That's a test of patience.
It's a test of patience for sure. And, we're a public company now, which is a whole story in itself.
Right.
And I go around and talk to investors and bankers and analysts. And it's interesting because the hearing industry is not well known in the U.S. I was just reading an article about the Danish companies. They call it the Silicon Valley of sound because there's 3 hearing aid companies in Denmark or in that area. And then you have the implant companies that exist right now are in Australia, Switzerland, and Austria. So there's really not an American hearing implant company.
Yeah.
And so people don't don't really understand the process. But as we go through this, yeah, it's a lot of waiting, but the barrier to entry to get into this is pretty substantial. So once we're all the way through it, we're going to have quite a head start on folks.
So talk a bit about your your personal experience going from the lawyer to the CEO. Was there a big step for you to make that transition, and how did that work out?
So I started law school, sort of not in. I didn't know. I didn't think. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't really think I was going to be a trial lawyer. It's not like I was reading John Grisham novels and hoping, to be litigating in court. But I looked at it as sort of my version of an MBA. So as I was going through the process, I really spent a lot of time learning about corporate law, healthcare law, because I was just sort of preparing myself for eventually I want to go into the medical device field, the healthcare field. This will be a good way of doing that. So the best part about law school is it really helped me learn how to advocate for a certain position. It really helped me learn to communicate via writing, effectively. Mm-hmm. These kind of things we sort of take for granted, but if you're a leader of an organization and you can't do that, you can't communicate effectively, you got bigger problems, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was the best part of law school for me, was learning that. Outside of that, going from where I was as the lawyer, because it was a startup company and we were doing, everybody wears so many hats, it really wasn't that big of a transition because I had been exposed to so much of it.
Right.
But I would say probably the biggest piece of it is when you become the CEO, you're responsible for everything. So you get the credit, but you also get the blame. And it's a pretty lonely position at times. So that was probably the one big change, is just learning that you're really responsible for the organization. You don't have anybody else. You have the board, obviously, but you don't really have anybody else to help you make the right decisions.
What do you do to help to get yourself through those moments where you're feeling on your own and you're kind of, you get brought every problem that comes across the table. So how do you personally manage that stuff? I mean, because that can be sometimes a bit of a burden to take on for the entire corporation, right? So what do you do? Well,
I have a great wife at home that makes, our personal life is always in great order, and she's a very intelligent person that can help me sort of come back to earth when I get a little too stressed out. So that's very important and great. Surrounded by an excellent team of people here in the building, but also I have a great board of directors and some very key advisors. But in those moments when it's, okay, a decision needs to be made, and not every decision can be made by committee, I really try to trust my gut. I've been around long enough. I've been the CEO now for about 10 years. I've been at the company since 2007, been around it in one form or another since 95. So my DNA is Envoy. I bleed blue to some degree, right?
Yeah.
So I try to trust my gut, because when I really do what's right for the patient, for the company, and put everything together, I have a pretty good sense of the decisions that need to be made. I think my decisions have gone poorly if I try to think about, what would somebody else do, or what would a big company do in this situation. Those are when we make mistakes. One of our biggest strengths right now is that we're a startup company. We can move quickly. We're 50 people. If a decision needs to be made, we can make that decision in 5-10 minutes on a fast side of things. Where, a company like Medtronic, if they want to change the font in a particular IFU, for example, it's going to take 100 people and take them 3-4 weeks just to go through that process, right? So we can move quickly, and we try to take advantage of that. And I try to really listen to my gut, and ultimately that comes down to, pointing ourselves in the direction of what's best for the patient, and that takes care of most of it.
Yeah, interesting that you've got the experience behind you that may have infused those instincts that you have. And you talk about you're a startup, but you're a startup with like 30 some odd years of experience behind you, right? So there's maybe a startup with confidence, maybe. Is that fair to say?
Sure, that's fair. And I would also my father was a an executive at a company called R&D Systems that then became Techne, which now calls itself Biotechne. It's a very successful biotechnology company here in Minnesota. And I saw him when I was very young in grade school and middle school. I saw them going through and him going through a period where it was very quiet. People were very unsure, is this going to work out? The stock for their company was quite low for a period. And then you start to get signs of success, right? And it starts to just ratchet it up slowly. But the belief has to be there the entire time. And so that self-confidence or that confidence in our mission to do what we're after, I think I saw it once, and I saw the movie, right? I saw it's happy in the end. I saw it's got a good ending. So now I can say we just really need to continue moving forward, and we have a real shot to have that ending for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool. Your parents must have instilled, a really good perception of what their work life was like. Because often you hear that people grow up around entrepreneur families where they have a family business, and it's like, oh my God, I do not want to work at my family business, or I do not want the life my parents had. So your parents must have actually presented that their experience as entrepreneurs and business owners was maybe an attractive option for you once you got to the point where you were ready to decide what to do.
I think, I had some of those feelings where, I don't want to do what my dad did.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, and he was working quite a bit, so I didn't get to see him all the time. He put in a lot of hours, and I travel a lot. And I have two kids, so I understand the sacrifices and the trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
But I also saw the ability for him to impact so many lives, even just the amount of jobs that company has been able to create, the economic value he was able to bring to our family and friends around us who believed in him. You realize that you have a really great opportunity. So the struggles in the short term, I've seen it pay off in the long term, and I'm really trying to embrace that. But I would say in the moment, I didn't want to become my father, and I'm slowly but surely becoming my father, and in a lot of different ways. But hey, there are worse things in the world. So.
Yeah, your father, but a new and improved version, perhaps, right?
Right. That's the goal, right? That is the ultimate goal.
And that's the goal for every parent too, is like, as long as you turn out better than I did my job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just one step above, right? No, and but it was great to see that success. And if I didn't see that, I do think it would have been difficult for me at this point in time. The Envoy had some tough years there, especially that 2015, 16, 17 period where I was like, boy, what are we going to do? You need to have some success stories where you can point to and say, well, we just need to do that. And if we can get to that point and we can tell people our story, eventually it's going to catch on. And, the product works. The product there are people out there that want it. We just need to get it there.
Mm-hmm. Was going public one of those solutions during that time frame where it's like, oh, you got to decide, well, we're going to have to go public here. So, was that a tough decision, and did it work out?
It was a tough decision. And I would say whether it worked out or not is TBD, right?
Yeah. The ending isn't here yet. We're still in the middle of the story.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. This is the middle of the book. I would say we went public for a variety of different reasons. One of them was we were at that point a 28-year-old startup company, right? And there are people who had been investors for 28 years who would really be nice to have some liquidity in this. And then we had employees coming to us saying, it'd really be nice to have more equity that I could see appreciate. Well, why should I stay with this startup company when Medtronic, which is 15, 20 minutes away, offers package X.
Right.
And so having options in a public company is a valuable asset for us to retain talent. Now, I'm not saying go public just so you can do that, because there's a lot of headaches that come with it.
Sure.
The other part of it is we have a very we have an angel of all angel investors in Glenn Taylor, who's a billionaire investor here in Minnesota, and he's been supporting us almost single-handedly now for the last 15 years. And we got to a point where, that we knew that can't continue forever. For him, for the company, it's just we needed other people. So getting to that public market allows people to get on and off the train a little bit faster. So, you can have a small retail investor who wants to take a position in the company. We can raise capital through secondary offerings. We have a few more tools in the tool belt being a public company.
Right.
The downside is, there's a lot of compliance related to it, so there's additional costs. And then you have to be transparent, so your competitors know where you're at. If I had a perfect, could I do it all over again and I could choose where we went public, I probably would have gone public closer to the FDA approval process, just because there wouldn't be this sort of gray area where we're waiting for it. But a lot of biotechnology companies go public early. A lot of drug companies go public early, preclinical. So it's not as usual for medical device, but it's there. But so far, I think it was the right choice. It's just some days, boy, I have to beat my head against the wall to say, oh my gosh, we have to spend time doing this. This doesn't really add value to the company. We're only doing it because we're public.
Right.
On days like that, I get a little frustrated, but ultimately it was the right choice for liquidity purposes for our investors who had been around for so long, but also for the employees.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you bring up a few things because you guys have a track record. So you have you have a resume as a company in that field. So going public, that was probably something that a lot of people would have done their research on and understood that this is a space that you guys occupy already. You're not a startup that's brand new to the market or brand new to the industry. So that would I also really enjoyed that you talked about that your parents provided not only a product for end users, but also created jobs and invested in your own community and provided much more. And I think a lot of people forget about that sure, you're creating a product for an end user or whether it's a customer or another business, but as a company, as an organization, you're actually creating a place for people to make a living, to build a family, to grow into a community, and that's a really important part of that. So do you, as a company, are there things that you can participate in as a company at your local level, community level, or anywhere else like that?
Yeah. So the company, we have a growing number of young families in our company, which is really great to see. I feel like I'm slowly becoming the old guy in the company, which I can't believe.
Don't you love that?
So we have people who are like, oh, I'm turning 25. Oh my goodness, I can't, or I'm getting married. Geez. But it's really, it really warms my heart when somebody says, I want to come work for Envoy, and I believe in you. I believe in the company. There's this sense of responsibility to those employees is pretty high. I love when we meet, their spouses or their significant others or their kids even at, we have holiday events, we do sporting events together. And when we see those people and we get to talk to them, it's a lot of fun. And it's also a great responsibility to think, okay, going back to when you're making those decisions, the impact of those decisions ripples through a tremendous amount of people's lives. But that's actually a part I really like. I really like that responsibility. And I think it makes me make better choices. We're in Minnesota. We're in White Bear Lake, which is about 20 minutes north of the Minneapolis airport. Mm-hmm. We are trying to grow within that community. We have a headquarters here. People are starting to move and live around the company. I think right now we're about 50 people involved a little bit with the University of Minnesota, involved a little bit with Mayo Clinic, which is in Rochester, Minnesota. I believe that as we grow, we'll be able to add hundreds of jobs in this area and really get more connected to the community. Interns, summer interns for some of the high schools and colleges and things like that. So we do plan to be really weaved into the fabric of Minnesota in the short term and in the long term.
For you, a big part of being a CEO is you're the leader. You are leader of not only your management team, but your leadership infuses right down to whoever sweeps the floor, right? So how do you what is it about your leadership that you think is appealing to everybody in your organization, and where do you get your leadership inspiration? Do you have mentors? Do you listen to a lot of podcasts? Like what do you do to keep yourself sort of in the current as far as your leadership style?
Well, I think part of it for me has been I played high school football for one of the worst teams in Minnesota. We just would get smoked all the time. And I tell you, the lessons that I learned on that football field about even though the score is not going in the right direction, or even though the game is not necessarily there, or we're not going to go to state, you got to look around. You're doing it for yourself, like the performance of yourself, but also the people around you. There were some great lessons that I learned there that I've tried to take forward. One of them is if you're going to ask anything of anybody, you better be willing to do it yourself. You have to walk the walk. You can't just be one of these people. And I've worked for a few people or been around them where I went to such and such school and I got such and such degree from that school. You're all going to listen to me now.
Right.
That doesn't go very far.
No.
And people don't think very highly of you. So you have to be willing to do it. We go to happy hours. If you're around me for too long, I'm definitely going to use a lot of curse words at some point. So, I'm just a normal guy and I'm not putting on airs. And I think that helps me connect with folks, but I really believe that they know that I'm honest too. At the end of the day,
right.
I'm not known to be full of it. And I try to be honest, tell it the way it is, good or bad. And, that seems to go pretty far. In terms of, mentors, I have a great board of directors. Glenn Taylor has been around. He's a billionaire who's built a lot of businesses himself over the years. Just his approach and how he listens to everybody, I've really tried to take that in. I don't force myself into a conversation. I don't try to control the conversation. I really let it come to me. And I got that from him. My father was great in making sure you value the other people around you. Try to be the dumbest person in the room. I'm pretty good at that most of the time. So, just taking those little bits and pieces. Podcasts I listen to all the time. I'm really more into comedy podcasts, just to sort of take a mental break. So I can't I can't really say any of those.
You won't be listening to this one.
Yeah. But it's great. And it's great to hear stories like this. And I'm also like I keep saying, I'm from Minnesota. There's a email group of about 30 or 40 of us, sort of small company CEOs. We pick each other's brains, get together every once in a while. And that's been really great as well.
If you can pinpoint one of your biggest obstacles in your career, what was it? And what did you do to get past that?
I would say there was a period, and I'm going to have to be careful how much I say here, because you got to buy the book eventually when this is all out. You don't want to give all
any names were used were not the real people's names.
Yeah, exactly. When I was here first as the lawyer, what I left out in my journey a little bit there is I actually resigned for a year because kind of voluntarily resigned because I didn't see eye to eye with the management team at the time. Was away for a year. That management team was replaced, and then I came back. That was a very difficult period, and I'm glad that it happened because it really informed part of who I am and what I want to be. but it was very difficult. I mean, these are difficult, sometimes very personal situations where, you love a company or you love what they're doing and you're not in a position to make a difference. It can be difficult.
Mm.
And I would just say to continue going forward, and, things tend to kind of work themselves out, which they have for us. But that was a big obstacle. I think imposter syndrome, which gets thrown around all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But, for a period of time there, I would go in to talk to an investor, or I'd go talk to a group of people, and I would think, oh, they don't really want to hear from me because who am I? But after a period of time, you start to realize, no, they do. They want to know about this company, or they want to know about your technology, and there's nothing wrong about talking to them about it. So I would say those are kind of the two things that stick out.
Mm-hmm. When you're talking about the technology side of things, this new product of yours is obviously innovative. You're using some new technology. What other technology are you leveraging right now? I mean, AI is, made a infusion into almost everybody's industry and business. Automation. Is there anything else you're tapping into with this new product now that you're middle of bringing it out?
So we haven't tapped into the AI directly into our product. And part of the cool part of our device is that you can use the ear to pick up sound. So because you can use the ear to pick up sound, you can put things in your ear. And so we're actually sort of banking on AirPods, hearing aids, other things progressing on the AI side very, very quickly. And then our device being able to sort of leverage that, right?
Okay.
So we'll build the device that lets you hear through the ear, and then we'll let those consumer electronic companies really, because they're going to be able to go way faster than we are.
Sure.
So, real-time translation, things like that, like just let them put it in your ear. So we intend to piggyback off some of that. I think it'll be a good symbiotic relationship, and we tend to piggyback off some of that. We have a rechargeable battery, so, we will be looking for updates to technology related to battery life, how fast you can charge a battery efficiently and safely, things like that. Those will be on the front of our minds. And then very specifically in hearing, telehealth or teleaudiology is a topic that keeps coming up. So we will continue to be interested in how rules and regulations change around that, because that's a big thing for our industry, and I hope that continues to evolve.
Interesting too. You brought that up. I was medical sensory devices too, about devices that can pick up things like body temperature, heart pulse, things like that to to advance this telehealth, telemedicine, and sort of full spectrum analysis of a person's personal health and wellness, day-to-day lifestyle, and collecting data for that aspect. Is that something you could possibly venture into too?
We filed some IP around the ability to do some of that. It's not in our current device, but you can figure out that if you're implanting it in, you got an implanted device, it's already in there. It'd kind of be a shame not to try to pick up some other things if you can along the way, right? So
especially around the head, maybe with neuro science and things like that.
Exactly, body temperature.
Cool.
There's a lot of interesting things to think about what we could do. And then the combination of technologies eventually. I mean, you could have right now we're a hearing therapy, but just throwing a crazy idea out there, there's epilepsy monitor devices, right, that are implanted. Well, maybe you could do both. Or diabetes devices, diabetes monitor. I mean, there's a lot of, as you start to think about it, can get very, very interesting very quickly. I really try to keep the team, though, highly focused on what we're set out to do, because it is such a large lift already. Like, let's not get too carried away. But once we're commercial and we got approval for the hearing implant,
100%,
you can start to think about bells and whistles to add.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, maybe someone I'll come up with a you know how you can charge your cell phone on a tablet? You have
Yeah.
a pillow that does that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've thought about it. We've thought about it. One of the technologies that it's not there yet because cochlear implants use so much electricity that you really need a lot of energy.
Right.
But what will be pretty cool eventually is just having a charger that you sort of set in the room somewhere, not even on your pillow, but
Right.
let's say across the room. And while you're sleeping at night, your implantable devices are being charged. That'll be pretty cool. They have a lot more hurdles to get over to get there, but I know some companies are working on it.
Yeah, innovation is not. There's no shortage of people coming up with crazy, cool ideas out there right now. It's out
Right.
of this world. Yeah, it's
Right.
like from the pages of science fiction. When we were kids, it's like a lot of the things that are happening right now. It's like we're in books and movies and comics. It's like we're now with the future is here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bionic man, right?
Yeah.
It's coming, and it will, I think, trickle. I mean, the hardest part or the slowest part of this process is the regulatory pathway. I mean, it is, you have to obviously make them.
Yeah.
Coming up with the idea is one thing, putting it in form and function and going through the process is another. So hopefully we all get better at doing that more quickly, and we should be all right.
So once you get to the point where you can actually take this to market, then you can go back to your marketing roots and dig those up, and then you can start marketing. And so, how are you going to approach that once you get to that point? When it gets to the time, so fast forward, we're ready to go. What's that look like for you? How do you want to approach that?
I want to approach it from a very organic place. I believe. I think I have a very strong, again, trusting my gut here. I have a very strong belief that the patient demand is going to be off the charts for a fully implanted hearing device, especially a fully implanted cochlear implant. I think the patient stories that come out of that are going to be very powerful. So really relying on that sort of organic process of the patients going through the process, telling their story, explaining why it's important, will touch other patients that go through this. Until we really have a competitor that has the same or similar device, and right now I don't think that, because the partially implanted devices are fundamentally different, and the other people coming after us with fully implanted cochlear implants, they do it differently, and I think they've made some design choices that are going to really allow us to differentiate ourselves. So I'm not going to be forcing the topic down people through aggressive ad campaigns or anything like that. Really trying to look at letting the patients tell their stories and then getting that message out there. I think that's going to be where we start. Also, a very controlled release. So for us, we do not need to sell hundreds of thousands of devices. We only need to sell a couple of thousand in the beginning to do very, very, very well. So we will focus on quality and going deep with our surgeon audiology partners at certain centers, making sure they get very good results, and then helping replicate that at new centers. So we'll be going, that's kind of the idea, and really letting the system slowly build into something great and not making any unforced errors. I think that's where companies like Envoy can set themselves back, is getting too carried away and creating some unforced errors.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good strategy. You'll have 50 some odd stories to tell at the end of the right.
That's right. 56. Yeah.
56. Yeah, exactly. 100% positive stories to tell.
Well, even if they're not 100% positive, there's always a very interesting, like, well, why didn't you get a partially implanted cochlear implant? Like, just tell us why. And one of the most powerful things somebody says to me is, I would have never gotten a cochlear implant if I had to wear that thing on the side of my head. Well, tell me why. And just that alone makes me feel very strongly that Envoy's got a really great opportunity, because if somebody was foregoing hearing because they did not want that external device, and now we can bring it to them, I'm feeling pretty good about life.
Just curious, the implant process, how long is that? Is it and is it an in and out thing? Is it in the hospital for a couple of days, or what does that look like for?
It's an outpatient procedure, so no hospital stay unless
Yeah.
for some reason they have an adverse reaction to general anesthesia. So there is a chance, but almost never happens.
Yeah.
The surgery itself, skin to skin, is about 2.5 hours. So they're in and they're out. Not a terribly, or not, let me put it this way, not known to be a terribly painful procedure. Obviously, people have different pain thresholds.
Sure.
Some people talk about, just needing an aspirin to sort of get over the head, the numbness, and other people, it is kind of a pain they feel like they were hit by a truck.
Yeah.
So it's a spectrum of that, but in and out and in a day, and then back to work in a couple of days. It's not something where you're like need to take a month off and reorganize your life.
Interesting. Better than a hip transplant.
Yes. And my mom had 2 knee transplants. It's far easier than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the outcome is instant too. Turn it on turn it on and away you go. Right. Interesting.
Right.
Well, awesome, Brent. This has been an awesome conversation. Thanks for sharing your experience with us. Do you have any final thoughts or takeaways for anybody to top it off with?
No, I'd just say if people are interested in following the story, go to envoymedical.com. You can follow us, our ticker too, COCH, if you're interested in following the company. I'm on LinkedIn. I talk probably more on there, updates more regular. So if you're interested in sort of seeing if the story ends happily, like I hope it does, follow us along. But no, I really appreciate the time and kind of having a long form chat here to talk about things. So thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I'll follow up with you. Well, I want to hear what happens too. So we'll talk again. Maybe if I have a podcast in 3 years, we'll see. If not, who knows? It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your time and taking a chance to come on here and be on this episode. So thanks a lot, Brent.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, great to meet you. Okay, so Brent's one of those people that have the opportunity to join a family business and actually embraced it, as opposed to running the other direction, as some of us would. But he's gone into the medical device industry, which he says is challenging, but offers great opportunity. Some other takeaways was that Brent's law background actually helped him in corporate communication. And that's interesting too, because a lot of people do go to school for one thing, but end up going in a completely different direction. But in almost every case have said that even though the education that they originally went for isn't the field they're in, helped them regardless. So that's a good advice to remember. Also trusting your instincts. He does tend to fall on that for making tough decisions, particularly when it came to going from private to public, which for him was really important to provide liquidity for investors and employees, which is a good consideration when wondering if that would be a route to go. Community engagement is crucial for company culture. And, he said you can find leadership lessons in some of the most unexpected places. That would be a good quote. So anyways, great conversation with Brent. I really appreciate learning from him about Envoy Medical. Feel free to check out their website and connect with Brent on LinkedIn if you need more information. Thanks for listening again to another episode of The Healthy Enterprise. Stay healthy, and we will see you again soon. Thanks.